Hey everybody, it's Rachel at Journey Back Quilts. Welcome. Today I'm going to tell you more about my quilting journey and tell you about what's coming up next. I am so excited for all of our new followers that have been joining, and I wanted to introduce myself a little bit more and tell you more about my quilting journey so that hopefully I can inspire you and maybe help you in your quilting journey as well. So as you can see, I have my Farm Girl Vintage quilt behind me. This week we are having a Farm Girl Vintage open house. It starts tomorrow night. It's only tomorrow night, Wednesday, October 18th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Now I know that's kind of late for you guys on the East Coast, but I hope that you can join me. If it's too late, you can always watch the replay. So go ahead and um, RSVP for that. I'm going to grab you the link, and my mouse is not working, so I have to touch my screen to do this. So excuse my hand. See if I can get it to post. Come on. Come on. It doesn't want to. There we go. Okay. I just put it in the comment box so you can go click that link and go over and RSVP for that open house. It's free. You're just going to hang out with me for an hour or so, and I'm going to be actually sewing together this adorable autumn star block. So you're going to learn how that goes together in this free class, and you can see it right down there on my quilt. And I've got new fabrics cut out. These are from, I believe these are all from her prim line. They might be some from her stitch line. I think they're prim line though. Her prim line's a little bit more um, fall feeling. So I thought this was perfect since it's the autumn star block. So these are my colors. They're all laid out and ready to go. And you're going to be able to watch me put that together tomorrow night. And we'll talk more about this Farm Girl Vintage class that's opening this week. And I'll tell you all the things. I have prizes that are Lori Holt. So if you don't know who Lori Holt is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her as well. She wrote this Farm Girl Vintage pattern book, and she is a designer of fabric and notions and fun stuff. So I have a bunch of her products for our giveaways tomorrow. So as long as you come live, you will be entered into the drawing. And I have 3 different ones, so you'll have to stay for the whole time so you can get your chance of winning a prize. So again, my name is Rachel. I'm the owner of Journey Back Quilts. We've been in business for a little over 6 years now officially. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story by sharing my screen here because pictures are fun, right? So, this is my husband, Jay. We've been married since 2005, and he is amazing. He's a great supporter of this business, and anything I want to tackle in life, he is like, go for it, and I'll help you how I can. And then I have 2 amazing teenagers, and they are amazing teenagers. We don't call them teenagers because that implies they're going to be snooty and snotty and have attitudes all the time. They're young man and young woman, right? So that kind of implies that they are responsible and mature, and but they're still young. They can go have fun, right? So, mom to these 2 kiddos, and then we have a puppy who you probably hear almost every live. She goes off and warns me about something. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? But her name's Macy May. I showed her last week. She's actually behaving herself, laying down for the moment. So you might hear her a little later because she's a Papillon. She can't help it. She's a barker. Um, Let me switch my view here so I can see my slide. So my quilting journey started back when I was a young teenager. I was about 13, 14 years old. My grandma, who you can see here in the picture, her name is Carol, and she and my grandpa retired in 92, 93-ish, and they sold all their stuff. They moved into an RV and they traveled every winter, mostly around New Mexico, Arizona, places like that, places around the West Coast here. But most of the time, they just wanted to be somewhere warm for the winter. But in the summer, they would come back up and hang out from May through September or so. And they wanted to spend as much time with us as they could. So for an excuse to get us together, my grandma's like, hey, let's learn a new quilt block every single week, and I'm going to teach it to you. And I believe she was probably learning how to quilt at the same time. And so she was really, she took on a big load because there were, let's see, 5 young girls. I was the oldest of them. So if I was around 13, 14, then my next cousin, who you can see in this slide, she was a year younger than me. And then my sister in the pink shirt, she is 4 years younger than me. And the cousin next to her is the same age. And then my last sister is in the middle and she's 8 years younger than me. So she was what, 5, 6, something like that. So my grandma was very brave. And then she took her 3 daughters too. So we had 9 women, 9 girls with 4 sewing machines and 1 iron and ironing board. And if you have ever quilted before, you're jumping back and forth between the iron and the sewing machine often. So we all had to learn to share and take turns. And I wasn't very good at that as a young teenager. So I kind of got frustrated and I didn't know how to work the sewing machine real well. So I would just vroom through all of my projects like speed demon and try to get them done. And of course, I'd have a lot of mistakes, a lot of holes in my block, a lot of puckers, a lot of weird stuff going on. And it just wasn't my favorite thing. I didn't like the craft, but I loved hanging out with my family. So I continued to do that. We would have our little snack cups. We always had the same little snack cups almost every single time. It had M&Ms, um, peanuts in it, and Reese's peanut butter. No, it had circus peanuts in it. And probably, oh, orange slices. Those were like the fave. So we all got a little candy cup full of those little goodies, and we would enjoy quilting while we had our little snack. So I did make a quilt and I was going to pull it out and I forgot. I still have it, but it isn't finished. It's just the quilt top and it's a mess. It's a mess. So when I hear people who are like, oh, it's my first quilt and it's horrible, I'm like, oh no, I've got you beat. I promise. So my next quilt wasn't until 2005. So this was, like I said, my grandma wintered in the 90s. So it was probably, oh, I don't know, at least, I guess it was around 6, 7 years later because I was around 20 years old. And my husband and I were getting married. He was my fiance at the time. And about 5 months before, 4 months before our wedding, my face went paralyzed and I had Bell's palsy. At first, we thought it was like my wisdom teeth were coming in, and we thought, well, maybe it was pushing on a nerve or something like that. And so we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, who was like, oh, no, you need to go see an oral surgeon about that. And we're like, what? What's going on? So we go to the oral surgeon, and he's like, oh, no, you have Bell's palsy. And we were like, what? What's that? So I guess it comes on because of stress. And I guess going to college, working a full-time job, and planning a wedding and all the things was a little too stressful for me at that time. So I had to quit everything, including work, and just stay home and rest. Well, I am not one to just sit still. I don't like to just be still and watch TV or read a book very often. Like, of course, I do a little bit, but not for a whole month. And so my mom was like, why don't you take my brand new Janome sewing machine and make a quilt out of it or do something? And so I took all my old jeans that were holey and I couldn't use them anymore, but for some reason I was saving them. So I cut them all up with some extra fabric and I made this rag quilt, as you see here. And it didn't turn out very well. I still had some holes in it. Some of the seams just didn't like come together correctly, and it was very heavy, very good utility quilt, good picnic blanket quilt, but I still didn't love it. And so fast forward a few more years, my face came back, we got married, everything was good. And a few years later, we had our 2 kiddos, and then my mom gifted me my first sewing machine. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom. You know how much I love sewing. So here you can see this little tiny brother machine with my 2 kiddos. And somehow, I don't know if I decided or she convinced me or something that I was going to make a rag quilt for my kiddos. Well, of course, because they're for my kids, I wanted to do a good job. And so we started with my son, he's the older, and I made this adorable little applique rag quilt. And as I was clipping through all of my seams to make it rag, uh, it I clipped through a lot of my seams. I'm like, oh, Mom, I still don't like this. Why am I doing this? But I had to make it fair. So I went ahead and made my daughter a quilt, totally different pattern, but still kind of that rag quilt kind of feel to it. And something just clicked when I was making that. Here you can see me sewing on that with my little girl watching me. It was so cute. I'm so glad we got some pictures of this so I can show you later. And something clicked. I just loved the process. I finally felt that relaxation, that sense of accomplishment. Of course, having littles, the house was always a little bit messy. Everything was sticky. You're always constantly wiping something, faces, hands, tables, countertops, bottoms, everything, right? You're always wiping stuff. So to have something completely finished and done gave me that sense of accomplishment that just inspired me to try it again. And so after that, friends kept asking me if I could make quilts for them. They'd share that I make quilts to their friends. And pretty soon I was making more quilts for strangers than I was for friends. And so I had to start a business because it just made sense. So in 2017, I bought my first long arm machine. It was a crown jewel baby lock, and that machine was awesome. It was a little tiny, just hand guided long arm, and it was great. I was able to learn how to long arm and help my clients even further and help them with these custom quilts that I was making. A lot of the quilts that people asked me to make were memory quilts. The very first memory quilt I made was actually a bridesmaid's quilt, bridesmaid's dress quilt. So I ripped apart this bridesmaid's dress and put it back together into a quilt. And I forgot to get a picture of that too. I have that, and you probably have seen it somewhere. If you really want to see it, you can probably go to my website, click on classes at T-shirt quilt, and the story is at the bottom there, where you can see the quilt in the picture there too. Anyway, it turned out fantastic. I loved it. And so that just kind of spurred me on to making more memory quilts and trying different fabrics and techniques. And now we do everything. We do everything from t-shirts and formal wear and baby clothes and button downs and you name it, I've probably done it. So um, that is what kind of started the business, but I still wanted a little bit more. As I said before, I am not very good at doing just one thing. I like to dabble in a lot of different things and kind of expand my knowledge. And so the next thing I wanted to do was to teach quilting and share my love with everybody else. So in 2018, I had my first t-shirt quilt class actually at a local quilt shop. And then later, she wasn't needing my services anymore or something. I don't know, some communication problems. But I was like, I can do this at my home. I have a giant basement. Let's just set up some tables and have a few students come over and I'll teach them how to quilt. So we did this amazing quilt you see here, the Underground Railroad quilt. And they just came over once a week and we learned how to piece it together and finish this fabulous quilt. So that just sparked that love of teaching even more. I had always kind of been a teacher. I was a preschool teacher when I first got married. I had taught ice skating lessons when I was younger. I taught Sunday school classes, all these different things. I was always teaching. And so this was just kind of that continuation of that joy is teaching how to quilt. Um, when I was teaching this, though, I'd have students who would occasionally miss a class, if they were sick or out of town or something, but they didn't want to miss the steps because they're like, you present the steps so much easier than the book might. And so I would love to see it on a video. Can you just film it for me and send me the video so I can follow it along at home? And so I was like, oh, okay, I have no idea how to do that. So um, I figured out how to set up a tripod and how to hook my phone to it to point at the sewing machine. And then I moved it over to my cutting board and ironing board, and it kind of moved around with me. And it was helpful enough for them that I was like, maybe we have something here. Maybe I can figure out how to do this a little bit better, a little more efficiently. So I bought a few cameras, a little more tripods, and I figured out how to film and edit a class so that we could have it online. And one of my students in this class, they actually asked me if we could do this Farm Girl Vintage quilt next as our next project. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. I don't even have to think of the next thing. And it's adorable. I had never seen or heard of Lori Holt before this. And so when she brought me this book, I was like, yes, that's adorable. I love it. Let's do it. So I started tackling filming every single block and getting them all compiled into an online class. And this is right before COVID hit. We didn't even know COVID was on its way, but God knew. And so he knew this is what we were going to need to do. Um, Back up just a minute. In 2019, my mom and I went to the Garden of Quilts show in Utah. And I got to meet Lori Holt herself and get an autograph on one of my books. And that was so much fun. So that just confirmed this is the class that we're going to do next. And it was so much fun. So that's just a little bit about my quilting story. After getting all these classes put together and online, we've just continued to grow the library of quilting tutorials to help you. But Farm Girl is still the most popular, the most fun one, and we go through every single block in this book to put them together. So let me see. Let me go back to my screen here. Awesome. Well, if you're just joining me, I would love to hear from you, where you're from, who you are, where you're watching from, all those things, and maybe where you are in your quilting journey. Are you a beginner, intermediate, an expert? I would love to know that. So leave me a comment in the box below and let me know, are you coming to the open house tomorrow night? So again, the Farm Girl Vintage Open House, it's a virtual event. So anywhere you are in the world, you can join. I will be sending you the Zoom link through your email. So you do have to RSVP, although it is a free open house. So you don't have to pay for anything. And you can just come hang out and watch me piece together this adorable block, which is the Autumn Star block. And you can see it down there in the little corner there too. So I'm going to be piecing that together, telling you a little bit more about this class, and I've got some prizes to give away too. So I hope that you'll join me there. It's tomorrow night, October 18th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So that's 8 p.m. Central Time. Click the link in the comment box, and that will take you to the page where you can RSVP for that. And I hope to see you there. We're going to have so much fun, and then we're going to kick off this fun class with that fun party. So all right. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Bye.